Spiritual awakening isn't what you were told it would be. It isn't the fire you were expecting, the rush of clarity, or the burst of energy that would finally light your path. It's not the moment where everything clicks into place and you suddenly know exactly who you are and what you're meant to do. No, awakening burns everything to the ground first. And in that fire, what you once thought was purpose, ambition, and drive dissolves into ash. You were told that enlightenment would make you come alive, that truth would energize you, that awakening would be a rush of inspiration, a rush of motivation to do, to act, to create. But now you're standing in the aftermath, staring at the rubble of everything you once chased. And it's quiet, too quiet. And in that silence, you can't explain why, but something is missing. You're not lazy. You're not broken. What you're feeling is the fallout of seeing through the illusion. The very things that once moved you, once drove you, no longer feel real enough to chase. You see behind the curtain now. You see what lies beyond the distractions, beyond the ambition, and it all feels hollow. This isn't failure, it's initiation. When the ego's narrative begins to dissolve, the things that once fueled you, your desires, your goals, your dreams, lose their meaning. The ambitions you once thought were yours, that fire that used to burn so brightly in your chest, are now reduced to embers. What you once called drive, what you believed to be your purpose, turns out to be a performance. And when that stage collapses, so does the actor. It feels like death, but in reality, it's the shedding of a self that was never truly yours. For so long, your motivation was rooted in fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of not measuring up, fear of not being enough. You chased goals not because they were born of your soul, but because they fed your ego's need for validation, for safety, for recognition. The hustle, the endless striving, the grind, was never about fulfillment. It was about survival. You needed to prove yourself, to prove that you were worthy, that you were seen, that you belonged. But when awakening strikes, that engine sputters. The fuel that once kept you moving runs dry. The structures that held your identity together begin to crumble, and what's left in the silence isn't a void. It's a womb, as Thoth, the keeper of sacred truth, once said. What's forming inside of you now is something no one taught you to want. The question isn't how to get your motivation back. It's why it had to disappear in the first place. You've been chasing a fire that wasn't yours to begin with. You were taught to live by it, to let it drive you forward, to fuel every decision, every action. But that flame, that intense passion for success, recognition, and progress, it wasn't born from the essence of who you are. It was inherited, passed down through the narratives of society, culture, and conditioning. From the first gold star in school to the never-ending pursuit of achievements in adulthood, motivation became about survival, not purpose. You were taught that the goal was always ahead of you. That purpose was something to chase, something to find. But what if purpose wasn't something you had to chase at all? What if the feeling of not having motivation isn't a sign of failure, but a sign that the old fire you once followed was simply a distraction? The fire that once burned in your chest, the one that made you hustle, strive, and push toward endless goals, it was never real. It was the ego's flame, a burning desire to be seen, to be validated, to prove your worth. That fire, though intense and powerful, was hollow at its core. It wasn't connected to your soul, it was connected to fear. Fear of inadequacy, fear of losing control, fear of being forgotten. And this is the paradox of awakening. You expected that spiritual growth would reignite the fire. You thought that discovering the truth would light you up again, give you direction, make you feel alive. But instead, you stand in the aftermath, where the flame has faded and all that's left is a quiet stillness. And in that stillness, you feel a sense of loss. But it's not a loss of purpose. It's a loss of the false purpose that the ego once fed on. The silence that follows awakening is not an absence. It's the space in which something new is being born. But it cannot be born while the old flame is still burning. You had to let go of the goals, the hustle, the need for validation, because they were never connected to your true essence. They were distractions, illusions designed to keep you busy, keep you distracted from facing your real self. In this sacred pause, you're not being punished. You are being purified. You are shedding the layers of identity that were never yours, and as those layers dissolve, something deeper begins to stir. But it cannot stir while you're still attached to the old drive. It cannot grow while you're still running on the fuel of fear. What you're experiencing is not a void. It's a womb. You're in a sacred space where the old parts of you are dying, making way for something new to emerge. But this process, this transition, is not quick. It's not glamorous. It won't be celebrated on social media or praised in the external world. It's internal. It's quiet. It's uncomfortable. But it's necessary. This space, this silence, is where true transformation happens. And here's the secret that most won't tell you. In this space, there is no urgency. The world will try to pull you back into the old patterns of hustle, ambition, and achievement. It will tell you that you need to find your purpose again, that you need to get back on track. But the truth is, there is no track anymore. And that's the point. You don't need to chase anything. You need to let go of the chase. You need to stop running. In this moment, in this sacred silence, the only thing you need to do is wait. Wait for the new rhythm to emerge. Wait for the new flame to rise. But this flame won't come from the ego. It won't be driven by fear. It will be something quieter, something steadier. It will come from a place deep within you, a place that doesn't need to prove itself or earn its worth. It will come from your soul. And when it does, it won't burn in the same way the old flame did. It will burn steadily, with purpose, and it will never need validation. This isn't failure. This is the beginning of something real. And the more you resist the stillness, the more you try to reignite the old fire, the longer you'll remain in this cycle of confusion. The flame you're waiting for is already inside you. It doesn't need to be chased. It simply needs space to emerge. And the only way to create that space is by allowing the old drive to dissolve. What you're experiencing in this pause, this space between who you were and who you are becoming, is not a void. It's not emptiness or failure. It's the sacred silence of transformation. It is the space where the old self is crumbling away, where the ego is losing its grip, and where a deeper, more authentic version of you is being born. This is where the real work happens, but it isn't glamorous. It won't trend on social media. There are no affirmations to push you through it, no quick fixes to bypass it. In fact, most people never want to go through this part of the journey because it's uncomfortable. It's the part of awakening that no one talks about, the part that doesn't feel like bliss, peace, or enlightenment. Instead, it feels like disorientation, confusion, and loss. It feels like a death, but it is not the end. It is the beginning. In the silence that follows awakening, there is no clear direction. There is no grand purpose waiting to ignite. There is only the waiting. And waiting in this culture, in a world that constantly demands productivity, feels like failure. We are conditioned to equate stillness with laziness, with stagnation, with being off track. But this is where Thoth's teachings come in. He reminds us that the sacred silence is not apathy. It is not a void. It is the womb, the space where something new is being conceived. This space feels like everything is suspended. The urgency that once pushed you forward, the fire that once made you chase, is no longer there. And at first, this feels wrong. It feels like you've lost something vital, like you've gone backwards. But in reality, what's happening is that your old identity is unraveling. The false motivation, the drive that was rooted in fear, the endless chase for external validation. It's all dissolving, and in that dissolution, there's nothing left but silence. The mind, trained to interpret stillness as danger, panics. It asks, "What am I supposed to do now? What's wrong with me?" It screams that you need to get moving again, to find a new goal, a new purpose to fill the void. But Thoth teaches us that this pause is not the problem. It is part of the process. You cannot rebuild what's coming until the old structures are completely dismantled. In this silence, you begin to question everything, not from fear, but from fatigue. You've seen too much to go back to your old life, but you haven't yet seen enough to go forward. You are suspended in the in-between, in the space where nothing is clear, where nothing makes sense. This is when the soul begins to whisper, when the old systems of motivation, of performance, of chasing dreams begin to lose their grip on you. It is here in the stillness, in the discomfort, that the soul starts to recalibrate. The ego's drive has faded, and what's left is a deep inner knowing that isn't concerned with timelines, goals, or external validation. What's coming next isn't about proving anything. It's about alignment. The soul moves at its own pace. It doesn't rush. It doesn't grasp for the next step. It listens, it waits, and it calls. The pressure to have it all figured out, to get back on track, to feel motivated again, is an illusion. The truth is that the pause is necessary. It's not a gap in your life. It's the preparation for the life that's waiting to emerge. In the sacred stillness, you are being reprogrammed. The fuel source that once powered you, fear, ambition, survival, is no longer the engine that moves you forward. Instead, it will be your soul's quiet hum, your deep inner resonance, that drives you. This is where the real transformation happens. In the stillness, everything falls away. The need for approval, the need for success, the need to chase. What's left is your authentic self, not shaped by goals, not defined by what you do, but by who you are. And it is in this sacred pause, in this dark womb of transformation, that you begin to reconnect with the deepest truth inside of you. The world will continue to move fast. The hustle and urgency will still be there, but you will no longer be driven by it. You will no longer be chasing something outside of you. In this space, you'll find that what you've been searching for has been inside you all along. It's not a goal, a title, or a destination. It's alignment. It's peace. It's a truth that hums quietly inside of you, waiting to emerge in its own time. The silence you're in isn't an absence. It's not a lack of direction, and it's certainly not a void. What you're experiencing is the unraveling of the false self, the egoic identity that was built on external validation, performance, and striving. That old self, the one that needed to achieve, to prove, to hustle for recognition, is dying. And in its place, something new is beginning to form, but it cannot be rushed. When awakening hits, it dissolves the ego's fire, the drive that pushed you to climb ladders, to collect titles, to make sure you were always busy. That fire, while it seemed like purpose, was actually just a mechanism of survival. It was born from fear, fear of being left behind, fear of inadequacy, and fear of obscurity. You chased goals, not because they fed your soul, but because they earned you praise and safety. You called it ambition, but underneath it was always the echo of fear. And now that the ego has been stripped of its power, that fire burns out, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a slow, imperceptible fade. And at first, this feels terrifying. You're standing in the ashes of everything that once moved you, everything that once defined you. It's quiet, too quiet. The things that once fueled you, your ambition, your goals, your desire to succeed, no longer seem important. You can't feel the spark, the drive, the urgency. You feel nothing. And you panic. You think, I've lost my motivation. I've lost my purpose. What's wrong with me? But here's where the paradox lies. You haven't lost anything. You're shedding what was never yours to begin with. You're letting go of the mask, the role, the script that was handed to you, the drive, the goals, the ambition, They weren't born from your soul. They were handed down, conditioned into you by society, by your upbringing, by the fear that kept you moving. Now that those external structures are falling away, you are entering into something deeper, something more aligned with your true self. This sacred pause is not a punishment. It's a reset. It's a return to origin. The ego relied on external validation, on success, on hustle to feel worthy. The soul moves differently. It doesn't rush. It doesn't push. It doesn't grasp. It waits. It listens. And in the waiting, something new is being birthed. It's not a new fire, but a subtle, steady flame that burns from within. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. But here's where the shift occurs. It's not about getting your motivation back. It's about realizing that what you called motivation before wasn't even real. It was the echo of fear, the illusion of purpose created by a false narrative. True purpose doesn't come from external pressure or goals. It comes from alignment with something deeper within you. It's the quiet pull that guides you, not the loud push of ambition. It's the resonance of truth, not the noise of performance. This is where many seekers stumble. They want to fill the silence, to find a new fire to light, to jump back into the hustle and the grind. But the truth is, you're not meant to hustle anymore. You're meant to live from alignment, not from striving. The soul doesn't chase, it resonates. It doesn't hustle, it flows. And when you start moving from this place, everything changes. Not dramatically, not loudly, but deeply. The pressure to achieve, to succeed, to prove yourself, it was never yours to carry. It was the weight of a false identity. And now, you're free. You're free to live not by what you can accomplish, but by who you are. And when you embrace this, when you allow the silence to guide you, you begin to realize that the real purpose isn't about reaching the next milestone. It's about living in alignment with your truest self. This is the rebirth of purpose. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less, but with more presence. It's about surrendering the need to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. The goals, the hustle, the fire, they were never truly yours. What is yours is something deeper. It's the quiet, steady pulse of your soul, guiding you in its own time, in its own way. The shift may not feel like a grand awakening, but it's a profound one. And in the silence, in the pause, in the space between your old self and the new, your soul begins to guide you. Not with urgency, but with truth. And when that truth rises within you, you will know it. It will feel real. It will feel steady. It will feel like home. As you stand in the silence, waiting for something to emerge, there's an underlying truth that begins to seep in. The silence, the pause, the feeling of being in between identities. It isn't emptiness. It isn't lack. It is the fertile ground where your true purpose begins to form, free from the noise of ego, validation, and the external pressures that once defined you. What's being born in this space isn't some grandiose ambition or new set of goals to chase. It's not the hustle, the striving, or the external measures of success that society has taught you to value. What's being birthed is the quiet, steady knowing that was always inside you, but buried beneath the noise of performance. True purpose, real alignment, doesn't come from pushing or striving. It comes from listening. It comes from being attuned to the quiet pulse of your soul. You've spent so much time seeking outside validation, looking for the next thing to achieve, the next rung to climb. But now, in the absence of that drive, you begin to feel a different kind of pull. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there. And this pull isn't pushing you to hustle or prove your worth. It's guiding you inward. It's showing you that your true purpose was never about what you could accomplish, but about how you show up in alignment with who you truly are. This is where the confusion often sets in. You might start thinking that since the old ambitions are gone, there's nothing left to do. You may feel lost, wondering why you have no clear goal or direction. But in this space, there's no need for clear goals. There's no need to be driven by external validation. The only thing you need to do is listen. And in that listening, you will find your way. Your purpose is no longer defined by external markers like success, achievement, or approval. It's not about making a name for yourself or ticking off boxes on a to-do list. It's about living in integrity with the deeper truths of your soul. It's about resonance. When you begin to feel what truly aligns with you, you will naturally start to move toward it. The pressure of goals and timelines fades. Instead, you live in a state of openness, allowing life to guide you from within. This is the return to yourself, the self that was always there, beneath the layers of conditioning and performance. This is the self that doesn't need to chase validation or success. This is the self that already knows its worth, its purpose, and its calling. And when you start to align with that, you will find that everything begins to flow. Not with urgency or stress, but with a quiet grace, a gentle movement towards what is true for you. You may not know exactly what that looks like yet, and that's okay. The point isn't to rush ahead. The point is to allow yourself to sit in this space, to let it unfold. The true purpose that's emerging isn't something you can force or figure out with your mind. It's something that will reveal itself in its own time, at its own pace. And as it does, you'll find that it doesn't feel like a task or an obligation. It will feel like a natural extension of who you are. It will feel effortless, even though it's deeply aligned with your soul's deepest truth. True purpose isn't about doing more. It's about doing differently. It's about living in a way that is true to your essence, not your ego. It's about embodying the truths you've uncovered, applying them in your daily life, and living with integrity. Your purpose is not something you have to chase. It's already within you, quietly waiting for you to realize it. And as you listen more deeply, you'll find that it starts to emerge, not as a singular goal, but as a state of being. And this is where the real work begins. It's not about figuring out your purpose and running toward it. It's about aligning with your true self, letting go of what isn't yours, and trusting that what emerges will feel more real, more fulfilling, and more aligned than anything you could have ever chased. In this space, you'll discover that purpose isn't something you find. It's something you live. It isn't about what you do. It's about how you do it. And when you begin to live from this place of alignment, everything starts to change. Not in a dramatic, world-shattering way, but in small, quiet moments. In the way you show up for yourself, in the way you treat others, in the way you move through life with a sense of quiet knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. Now that the old fire has burned out and the ego's hustle has faded into the background, you might feel a bit unmoored. The intense urgency that once propelled you forward is gone, and in its place, there is this quiet. It's not the absence of purpose. It's the presence of something deeper, more authentic. You are no longer driven by the need to prove your worth or achieve external success. You are living from a different place now, a place of alignment. Alignment doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand validation. It doesn't push you to be somewhere you're not ready to be. It simply is. It is a quiet power that comes from knowing who you truly are, not who you were told to be. It's not loud or brash, and it won't be recognized by the world in the same way the ego-driven hustle was. But make no mistake, alignment holds an undeniable strength. It is a force that is rooted in truth, in peace, and in the recognition that you don't have to go anywhere to be whole. This is the paradox of true spiritual growth. You spend so much time looking for the answers, running toward a future where everything is better, trying to fill the void with achievements, experiences, and accolades. But when you step into alignment, you realize that there's nothing to chase anymore. Everything you need is already within you. And that is where the real power lies. Living from alignment means you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be recognized, celebrated, or validated. The hustle, the chase, the pressure, they are no longer part of your reality. Instead, you move through life with a quiet confidence, not because of what you've done, or what you're achieving, but because of who you've become. You have let go of the false narrative that kept you running, and in its place, you've embraced the truth of your being. This is where many people get lost in their spiritual journey. They expect that alignment will come with some grand revelation, some lightning bolt of clarity. But alignment isn't flashy. It doesn't demand your attention. It's subtle, like a river that flows beneath the surface. It's a quiet, steady pull that guides you toward what is truly yours, without forcing or rushing. It's a power that moves through you without you having to do anything. It just is. As you move from alignment, you begin to realize that the world you once chased after, the world of validation, success, and external approval, wasn't real. It was all an illusion designed to keep you distracted, to keep you performing. But when you let go of that performance, when you stop measuring your worth by what you can achieve or what others think of you, you find a new kind of freedom. It's not the freedom of getting everything you wanted. It's the freedom of no longer needing anything outside of yourself to feel complete. The shift from hustle to alignment is a deep one. It's not about doing less or being passive. It's about doing everything with a sense of presence and integrity. When you live from alignment, you no longer measure your worth by your productivity. You no longer chase the next big thing to fill a hole that was never there. You start to see that everything you do, when done from this place of alignment, has meaning. It doesn't need to be acknowledged or celebrated. It is enough because it is done in harmony with your true self. And in this space of alignment, you begin to notice something remarkable. Life starts to flow. Things don't feel like struggles anymore. They don't feel like battles to win or obstacles to overcome. They feel like a natural progression. You are no longer swimming upstream against the current. You are moving with it effortlessly. And though there will still be challenges, still be moments of discomfort, they no longer throw you off course. You no longer need to escape them. You embrace them because you know they are part of the journey. Alignment isn't about perfection. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about being at peace with where you are. It's about trusting that the process is unfolding exactly as it should. And in that trust, you find a deeper peace, a deeper strength that can't be shaken by the external world. This is the power that comes with real transformation. It's not loud. It doesn't require constant effort. It is simply being. It is knowing who you are, trusting the process, and allowing life to unfold naturally. And when you live from alignment, the world responds differently. You don't have to chase success. Success comes to you. You don't have to seek approval. You realize you've always had it from within. This is the quiet power of alignment. It is the peace that comes from letting go of the need to perform, to prove, to hustle. It is the strength that comes from living authentically, from embracing the truth of who you are. And when you step into this alignment, you begin to realize that the world you were striving for was never the one that was meant for you. The life you are meant to live has always been within reach. And now, in the quiet, in the stillness, you can finally hear it. You've gone through the quiet, the stillness, the sacred pause, and now the next step is here. Integration. The shift you've been waiting for, the awakening you thought would light you on fire, has instead led you into the deep, silent understanding that the world you once chased was never yours to own. The fire you thought would drive you forever has burned out, leaving behind only the quiet hum of alignment. And now, it's time to live what you've discovered, not as a concept or an ideal, but as a grounded truth in your everyday life. Integration is the most challenging phase of any awakening. It's the moment when the realizations, the shifts, the insights you've gained are no longer abstract concepts that exist in your mind, but are lived through your actions, your choices, and your presence in the world. This is where the rubber meets the road, and where many seekers stumble. You've had glimpses of truth, you've seen behind the curtain, but now the question is, how do you embody that truth without reverting back to old habits, old ways of thinking, or the old identity that was tied to the hustle? This is where the real test lies. Can you live as the person you've become, not just when it's easy, not just when everything aligns perfectly, but in the messy, everyday moments? Can you stay present with the truth you've uncovered, even when the world around you is still operating on old, outdated values? This is where you stop performing spiritual practices to feel good and start embodying them because they are who you are. The work you've done to strip away the false layers of the ego, to dissolve the performance-driven identity, now has to be integrated into how you move, how you act, and how you interact with the world around you. And that's not always going to be easy. The world you now live in doesn't understand the depth of the change you've gone through. It still values success, hustle, achievement, and external validation. It still judges your worth by how much you do, how much you produce, how much you achieve. But you are no longer bound by those old metrics. You are no longer moved by the approval of others, by the endless race to make it. You are aligned with something deeper, something that doesn't care about how fast you run or how much you accomplish. It simply wants you to live truthfully. Integration is about holding that truth in the midst of the world's noise. It's about making decisions not from the old place of fear or ego-driven ambition, but from the place of alignment with your soul. It's about noticing when you're being pulled back into the old patterns, into the performance-driven mindset, and choosing not to go there. It's about recognizing the moments where your mind wants to rush ahead, where your body wants to prove something, and stopping long enough to ask, is this in alignment with who I am now? Is this driven by my true self, or is it the old programming trying to reassert control? The truth is, this will be a constant practice. The ego will always try to reassert itself, to pull you back into the world of striving and seeking validation. But each time you choose alignment, each time you choose peace over productivity, presence over performance, you strengthen the integration. It becomes easier, more natural, and you begin to see that your life can still move forward without the hustle, without the constant need to chase. In fact, it will move forward with more ease, more clarity, more purpose than it ever did when you were driven by fear and the need to prove yourself. The beautiful part of integration is that it's not about achieving perfection. It's about returning to yourself over and over again, each time you feel the pull to chase or perform. It's about listening to the subtle, quiet truth inside you and allowing that truth to guide your decisions. It's about showing up in your life not as someone who is trying to make it or prove something, but as someone who is already whole, already enough. It's about trusting that everything you need is already within you, and that when you live from that place of inner knowing, the world will align with you. This is the true meaning of living with integrity, living from a place of alignment, not because it's trendy, but because it is who you are now. Now, my beautiful viewer, if this message has sparked something in you, feel free to like and subscribe and comment. I am successful if you have reached this far into the video. Thank you and hope to see you in the next video. Salute.